Welcome, guys, girls, to the No Bullshit Gymcast podcast. And we have the one and only, if I don't know it, he knows everything. Paul's back in the space. Now,
G'day.
welcome, Paul. How are we doing, mate?
We are doing pretty well today, mate. Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to talk some, debunk some bullshit.
Yeah. Balls and bullshit of PEDs for women. So, guys, not everyone knows this. It's been edited at the moment. It's actually edited. I've just got to have it sent over to me. We did a part one podcast a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, mate, on PEDs?
Yes, we did.
Awesome podcast. Great. I really enjoyed it. So we decided we're going to do a part two, especially for women. Now, ladies, this guy knows a bucket load of PED stuff. Absolute bucket loads. So we've got some really good questions for you guys. For you, Paul, and so we can answer it for you guys out there.
Yep.
So should we just get cracking on
Let's
this?
crack the whip.
Cool.
Let's crack the whip
So
and hit this.
I think the best one to start with is, what are the most common PEDs for women?
Cool. Number one PED for women across the board is Anavar. A little pill that you take, easy to take. Now, the thing with that is Anavar was designed for hypergonadal teenage boys, which means they weren't going through puberty. They weren't getting the androgenic effects of becoming a male and having elevated levels of testosterone, which does include muscle mass and strength, but also all the androgenizing effects. And Anavar's per dose is actually quite virile as a supplement. So it is most people's diving point into PEDs, and I would say for men and women, like a lot of men will just go, I'm just going to try some bar because it avoids the thing that most of us don't want, or most people who use PEDs are scared of or thinking about, which is the needle,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Definitely.
So with the needle being like a deterrent factor, Anavar is a really simple drug for a lot of females to start with on their PED journey. Is it the best option? Probably not. I have a different approach for females.
Yeah.
Can it be used? Yes, it can. Should it be used? It's not for me to say whether it should or shouldn't. It's like, what side effects are you willing to uh, deal with? And if the side effects, like if you're comfortable with, increased facial hair, deepening of your voice, development of masculine features, then that's totally cool and that's totally up to you. But yeah, Anavar would definitely be the big one that a lot of female athletes start with.
Yeah. Now, with that, Paul, like obviously the side effects factor, there isn't been known. There's multiple side effects, right? But
Yes.
i.e. the toxicity level within women is quite high, isn't it? In comparison to like a guy being able to handle that a sort of a decent amount going through their system in comparison to the
Yes.
female body. And this is
Yes.
where I think a lot of women in the bodybuilding world or in the fitness world get completely lost with this. And they think, oh, yeah, no problems. I'm not getting any facial hair. I'm not getting excessive amounts of growth of any hair whatsoever. My voice, unless they're going to do a voice test every day, you're not going to know realistically until
No.
it is broken and it's well beyond repair. So, would you say Anavar realistically really is not the best one to go to, i.e., if you're female, because i.e., the toxicity levels, but the fact of it is most people are scared of the one and only thing that a lot of them hate is the needle.
Yes. Yeah, they absolutely go to Anavar. And yeah, what you said about toxicity is true. So any drug that's basically taken orally versus an injectable has to go through liver processes and it has to go through kidney processes as well. And Anavar, uh, from my experience, for people who are sensitive to side effects, because everyone has its own like variant. Some people can like you look at any of the Olympia guys, those guys can literally like inject drug steroids into their jaw and they'll be fine, right?
Yeah.
They've got really high tolerance, but obviously they're the best of the best for a reason. With females, I've seen a lot of like kidney stuff prop up for that, and it can pop up in quite a like my feet are swollen right now type way, which is indicative of actual acute kidney failure. And that type of stuff is lucky for some people, they're lucky, and this sounds like it's like I'm saying the wrong thing. They're lucky if it pops up quickly
Yep.
because it then gives them a very quick warning sign that, holy crap, this is not the right thing for me to be doing. Like I'm actually going to cause some acute damage. The negative, and that's what you were alluding to, is the vast majority of people who get it take it and they're not getting like, the deeper voice. And they're not, see, I think I should need some Anavar, to be honest. I've got no facial hair, terribly. I'm going to get some Anavar right now. With that, they don't get those in the immediate feedback side effects. I had a client who tried Anavar, and on the third day, they couldn't get their foot in their shoe. And I was like, you need to get off that and go to the
Wow.
hospital. Very, very poor drug tolerance, basically. And they asked to try Anavar, and people try something. I'll always say, look, it's totally up to you. This is the cost that you have to pay. I had one client when we talked about our not last week's, our couple of weeks ago, conversation about tren. He asked if he could do tren, and I literally said, these are all the freaking side effects that you're going to get. These are the rules that I would have for you to go on it. Like I want your heart rate. I set some ridiculous targets for someone who's on steroids. I was like, get your heart rate below 60 and your blood pressure below 110/70.
It
Like
ain't gonna
no
happen.
one's it ain't gonna happen. He's like, oh, I want to have it. I'm like, cool. These are all the consequences. Do you sign off on all these and you accept full responsibility? Yes. I pinned that message, saved it. I was like, on you now, bitch. To the guy, uh, with the Anavar, uh, you get that if you don't get that immediate side effect, that's when like having like a health monitoring practice is important. And most bodybuilders and female athletes, if they're not going to get the voice check and just simply go hello every day to see if the voice is getting deeper, they're not going to do that. And so yeah, it can become quite long term, very, very problematic for a lot of females. And what I've seen is females who have used Anavar and gotten to competition and without having a clue what they're doing or working with a good coach they get long-term body composition effects where they gain a shit ton of weight post and they struggle with health conditions and infertility for years and years and years. So I don't think look,
I,
I can't argue it'd be worth it, but that's up to them.
yeah, I was about to say a lot of like what I've experienced and come across is women will dive straight into Anavar because it's the one to go to. Then they're halfway through their prep, so their dosage has gone through the roof. Next minute, they're starting to get a little side effect, a little bit of growth, or the voice is starting to, oh yeah, it'll come back, no worries, it'll go back to normal. And then suddenly, like you say, they've added like Clen in there and a few other bits and bobs, which we'll go over in the rest of this podcast. And by the time they've come off, you know, a week out or a couple of days, depending on their coach and their protocols. Next minute, it's like, I'm going to have, and it's the typical bodybuilding post show thing. I'm going to go and eat what I want. And then the next
Oh
minute,
yeah.
they have just gone from like being 60 kilos or 40, 50, 60 kilos, whichever the class they're in, shredded to hell. Next minute, they are ballooned. Their ankles are like watermelons. Their feet, they can't get into any shoes. Their calves have become crankles because it's the same size all the way through from their ankles all the way up. And
Yep.
then they're getting puffy. I've seen it all, but all because they've gone diving straight into Anavar.
Yep. Absolutely. It's a crazy thing. And like I'm sure we're going to touch on it, but like it would be very low on my list of what I would actually give a female from who wanted to go into competitive bodybuilding and go down that pathway. Like, would it be on my list at some point? At a very, very high level, possibly. But it's certainly not the way I would start that journey. And yeah, ankles, cankles,
It has
infertility,
its
like all these things happen.
it has its usage. It's a bit
Yes.
like everything, all of this, guys, girls, has its usage, but it's dependent on what you use it with or without, and where you put it into your cycle for, i.e., optimal gains for your show. Now, that's the problem, is if your coach isn't sitting down with you and going, right, from this point to this point is where we're going to use X. And then this point to this point is where we're going to bring Anavar in, and so on and so on. that is where it just gets mixed up. It's the magic Smarties box, I call it. Is this pill, this pill, this pill, this pill. Yeah, oh my god, I'm rattling. I've got my Smartie box, and oh yeah, next minute your health is on the floor. Doesn't help.
Yeah. No, it doesn't help. It's what I really loved that you said there. Uh, it has a time and place, and it can be used at something, and that's the same kind of thing. Like we're just giving Trent a little bit of shit there.
Mm.
Like it has some very limited applicability in, like, say, someone who's doing something, a sport like powerlifting, where they have to have some form of aggression, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Yeah.
as part of the peaking cycle for it. For a cutting cycle, man, no, there's better choices. So every compound, and it's a really like mature way to look at it. Every compound does have a place. It just, do they have the right place at the right time,
Mm.
and are you using it for the right reasons? And then secondly, besides using it for the right reasons and all that type of stuff, are you in a position where the shorter term reward is worth the longer term risk? And are you doing what you can do to mitigate um, the shorter term risk? Okay, so a lot of people don't do that.
Well,
It's
no, they
it's
don't.
it's a
They
really
don't.
interesting way to do it.
It's
So the fact that you've already addressed that is excellent.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like as we'll move on. Is these got what a lot of people don't understand is women's hormones are a lot more complex than men's. And when you
Yep.
start adding androgens in there, you're adding in another big cement mixer of a load of shit on top, which is going to affect their whole cycle. And it can go on for months, if not years.
Yep. Absolutely. Goes on for a life, like nearly a lifetime for some women. And I think that's the biggest challenge in bodybuilding, which is kind of like, it's very hard to think beyond the next like 4 weeks.
Mm.
But the biggest scope a bodybuilder really has is prep, right? They think about prep, they think about prep, and that's all they have to do. So like 16 weeks out, it was cool, I'm doing this. I can stick to this diet for 16 weeks. We don't think, cool, I'm going to try and have kids in 3 years. We don't think, man, I'm going to have a build up of plaque in my arteries from this in 3 years. We don't think about that type of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the hardest thing to do. And it's the bodybuilders who do make it and who do last a long time, who don't burn out brightly. They also seem to have that trait where they can understand how things work in a couple of years in every other area of their life. Which means that they're generally more successful overall because they
Well,
can project for longer time frames, right?
exactly, yeah.
So if you're looking at a drug, you got to look at, all right, cool. What's the time frame that we're going to do on this? Let's get this shit done, and let's work out how we can move around that.
Yeah, it's well you put okay, we'll use a very well known pro, Jay Cutler, for instance, right?
Yeah,
Obviously they had
pretty well done.
excessive amounts of usage of stuff, right? Even though they say, I didn't use a lot, right? I don't believe it because he got busted in at MTV The Cribs with the whole row of his fridge was full of insulin and growth hormone and test and all the above. It
Yeah,
was a whole shopping spree on the top shelf. So in that realm, but look at his longevity of him now. Okay, so he's in his 50s. He's probably on TRT, and that's it. Maybe a little bit more. Who knows? But he's obviously gone and planned it, retired. He originally said he was going to retire in his 30s. He retired in his 40s, right? Now,
yeah,
he's been a top bodybuilder since the age of 16. That's a long period of time. But then he's still got a longer period of time on the planet later. And like you were saying, it's planning. It's not like the quality of back in the day and Arnold and all of that lot when testosterone was like premium and everything else was at a premium, like D-bol was a premium, wasn't mixed with X, Y, and Z,
yep.
cement mixing stuff, and you name it, it's already in there. So it was a lot more pure. But these guys and girls now are literally getting anything and anything from anywhere they can. And the quality, really, come on. So we'll go on to the next drug or the next compound, shall I say.
Yep.
I would probably say the next popular one in women is primobolan.
Yep, primo. So primo, couple of issues with primo. First of all, well, at least in Australia, primo is very rarely primo.
Yep.
Okay, it's very often, just how do I put it, just fake. Like it's generally just like got other stuff in it. It's not with testosterone. So primo pollen for women. Look, if you are going to go down the injectable compound route, my general approach for someone starting that process is to get some blood work done,
Mhm.
right?
That's number one.
And number one, right? And what I generally recommend is HRT at the beginning. So looking at getting testosterone levels up to a normal level, or at least I wouldn't say super physiological. I would say at the peak of normal. And you can do that with like literally like the tiniest, smallest injection of testosterone you could ever possibly see in a needle, um, compared to a guy, right? Um,
Sure, you're actually going to be able to backload it into a,
yeah, you
you
can
know,
barely
a
backload it. So
syringe at all. It's
it's
literally a
very,
drop.
very tricky.
It's
It's
literally a
literally a drop.
dribble, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's very, very hard to do. So pre-ball in the bodybuilding community, because pre-ball and masteron, they both like help balance out estrogen alongside, and they're not like a pure testosterone. And generally, be better um, substance for that, and like it's used very, very heavily in the female bodybuilding world. Again, I would come to it later after doing exhausting every single pathway I could that is anabolic, that builds tissue or improves training quality, with before going on to that type of stuff. So you want to make sure you got like, a good couple of years under your belt maximizing. And like for example, growth hormone and clen can fall into that bracket because neither of them are androgenic.
Yeah.
So neither of them are going to increase any masculine traits in a female. So I would go through that process. And when I explain it to clients who want to do that, generally they feel more comfortable with that. And I say, look, let's see where we can get you to. Because what's your goal? Is it to become like look good in bikini? Because if it's looking good in bikini, like bikini like type show, which is like the most popular one, let's be real, it's bikini, right?
Oh, yeah, 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 100%.
It's not fucking like women's bodybuilding isn't even at the O anymore. Um, so I don't think it is it. They got rid of the female bodybuilding category, or
No,
they changed it to something else.
they brought it back at the Arnold's.
Yeah,
Uh, Not this year, the year before, last year. They brought it back.
yeah,
Some federations over in Europe, America are doing what we would class as proper bodybuilding, but then generally it falls down to a very overgrown, large physique class for women instead.
yeah,
Some women would be, if you walked into one of these, some of the shows up in like the Northern Hemisphere, in comparison, say in Australia, or you've got very few and far between. Say, for instance, state finals in IFBB. Say, for instance,
yeah,
the girls are big in physique, say, or a very big figure girl rather than anything else. But actual out and outright bodybuilder, yeah, those shows are very few and far between now. But
yeah,
you're talking, probably the biggest, most popular female bodybuilder, actual bodybuilder, was Iris Carl. She was the last one. She was an
yeah,
eight-time Miss Olympia. Now,
yeah. I remember her.
she is like, I call her the mini Ronnie Coleman. She back in her
Yep,
day, like you can probably remember her.
yep,
She was massive, like absolutely
yep,
huge. But I can tell you now, ladies and gents, there's serious amounts of years of training. It was a number one role of a job. She didn't do anything else, and
hmm
serious amounts of copious amounts of PEDs will have gone into that.
Oh, more PEDs than God, right?
Yeah,
And that's the thing that I'll try and do with most of my people that I work with because I want to make sure that we know exactly where we're trying to go because people think we'll go PEDs, right? To build their physique or get strong or whatever it is. And it's like that they don't need to be first for a female. Like your SARMs, for example, are designed for females to build tissue without having androgenic side effects.
exactly.
There's other pathways for a female. And if you look at what most females generally want to achieve, if you think you need PEDs to compete in bikini, like you need primobolan or test or anabolic to compete in that, you're probably doing it wrong. there's probably a lot of things that you're actually missing on the table that you aren't maximizing at all yet before you go into something that's going to affect your fertility and your lifespan.
I would say, on this is it's a fashion parade of the quickest way to get there to that end result, which is not
Yep.
necessarily. And like I've pulled out an old podcast of mine from back in when we had the pandemic, right, with an
Yep.
IFBB pro John Hodgson, right, today. I was going through it and doing some snippets and stuff, and we were talking in that podcast about the quality, even down to amateur levels, say up in the northern hemisphere, right,
Yep.
back then. So we're talking 2020, like
Yep.
2021, and like he'd been 10 years nearly retired at that point, and he said even the quality there in the amateur world back then is absolute pee poor in comparison. And Lee Priest put a post out the other day, absolute cracking post on his Instagram about pro cards at this moment in time. Half the people, he goes, if you put shit out on stage, you're going to get shit results. And he goes, it's just shit. That half of these people don't even deserve to have a pro card at all.
Yep.
And I'm in
Well, it's
agreement.
becoming a
I've said it. I've said it for like 5, 6 years now. Since, basically the pandemic, I said, I think up in England, they gave out 16 pro cards in 2021 alone. 16.
yeah, it's speeding up the amount of pro cards that you can get. And in Australia, we have a problem with the natural federations handing out pro cards like they're candy. It's like,
Is that
bro,
Jason
you're not.
Whitworth by any chance up in Queensland at ICN
Uh, uh,
handing them out?
I'll never I'll never confirm or deny, but like it's just bonkers, man. Like I'm just like I remember I looked at when I was doing my one of the photo shoots that I did. I was looking at it and I was going through like the severe body dysmorphia moment that most people go through at one point, going, "I look like shit. Oh my God, I'm fat." Blah blah. I had like an 8 pack, and I'm like, I'm looking at it, and then I saw an ICN show come up, and like this guy won, and I'm like, I looked at it, and it took me like a couple of minutes to actually process what I saw because I was like, this dude doesn't have a back. Like he won. He got a pro card. Like he's literally like if he turned to face you, you'd miss him. Like because he's so narrow. And like no offense to the guy. Like obviously he put some effort in all that kind of stuff. But I'm like that's not a pro bodybuilding level physique for
Mate,
anyone.
I when I came back to Oz in 2017, I know it's going a little bit off side topic here, right? But
Yeah.
it's not because the quality of women. I had female clients out there. Now
Yeah.
we did an IMBA, I think it was show, um, up in Queensland, and no joke, it was a figure class, and my
Yep.
client, she literally came to me 12 weeks out and like had horrible prep. Her previous coach had dumped her sort of thing halfway through their prep, and it's like it was a nightmare, right? Anyway, got her on stage, and she was okay. I wouldn't say she was perfect, but it was good enough, right?
Yep.
And the girl jumps on stage in front on the. We're waiting backstage. This girl barges past, absolutely shredded. Literally looks like a starving Ethiopian. No disrespect to
Yep.
Ethiopian people here, but
Yep.
it was literally like, where's the muscle? It was literally starved, like nothing there, flat, everything. And then she started going like this and going a bit gaga at the back of the stage. And I'm like, she's going to pass out in a minute. So we gave her some
Yep.
water, right? She came round. Oh, thanks very much. No worries. They jumped on stage. She beat my client and turned around and said, as she came off the stage, and said, I'm really sorry, but I have to be open and honest. I took some stuff to get me on stage. I'm like, this is a natural federation. And
Yep.
this is
And
and the winner openly, honestly stood there and said, "Look, I'm sorry, I took some stuff to get me on stage. Didn't provoke it. Didn't take her first place away. Nothing whatsoever." And I was like, "Wow!" And like you say, the natural sort of stuff in the southern hemisphere is just like, I think they've got the wrong idea of bodybuilding, in my opinion.
yeah, they do. but we could go on that track pretty far down because our bodybuilding here is very, very different to uh, the UK. That's why, like with bodybuilding, like if I was going to compete, I'm kind of like we got FMG and like I'm sure you heard what happened at IFBB and all that type of stuff and how no IFBB, sorry, WBFF and how that went all pear-shaped because of
Yep.
a disaster there and how they treated competitors. I only really care about like IFBB just because it's more about the physique more so than anything else in the actual sport. Uh, rather than just like the show and glamour and glitz and the I guess the political side of it. But yeah, bodybuilding is a bit of a nightmare. But let's get back onto
So,
females and gents
as we were
because we could go
saying,
off.
females we're going off on a little bit of a tangent there. But so obviously we've gone into primo. Okay, we've touched on Psalms a little bit, right? Okay,
Yep.
now a little bit without going into massive detail because we could be here until Christmas on between the differences between Psalms, PEDs, peptides, clenbuterol, a few
Yep.
other bits and bobs, GH, insulin, so on and so on. Differences between, say, the top three things most women are probably going to use is like obviously PEDs, Psalms, and say maybe a little bit of insulin or GH.
Yep. Cool. So basically, they're all looking at activating different pathways. Okay, there's different metabolic pathways that they all have that basically have a different cause and effect. And that cause and effect there'll be something that happens at a physiological level, which they'll be laying down more tissue or increasing, fuel storage. And there's something that'll be happening from a training perspective. They'll be able to do more of something, have a higher capacity. So for females, generally PEDs, if we're going to look at that, they're androgenic. So you develop high levels of male hormone. High levels of male hormone very strongly correlated with building muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's not be like, that's not I hope that's not news to anyone, but because it's pretty basic. But yeah, higher levels that will build more muscle. It will also increase fast twitch disposition because females are generally more slow twitch in nature, and they can handle more training volume when they get on testosterone or a PED. Generally, what happens is because they can recruit more fast twitch muscles, they grow faster, but their recovery slows down quite dramatically. They can't do 6 sessions a week anymore. With your SARMs, your selective androgen receptor modulators, what they basically do is they get your androgen receptor and they upregulate it so you can actually use more of what you've already got. Okay. Now, SARMs can be really useful for females. Some females respond really well to them. I generally won't recommend SARMs if anyone has a family history of like cancer, because if they improve growth in one area, guess what? They can improve growth in that area
Cancer
too.
cells.
And we don't want that cancer cells. Same with like even with GH and stuff like that. And then with your GHs and insulins as a thing, well, GH growth hormone doesn't look. It's not entirely. It's more anabolic in females than it is in men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's kind of like you could nearly argue that creatine is an anabolic substance in females relative to men, and females will get a better response from creatine. GH, for example, it just amplifies everything. It makes everything work better.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what it does, and allows you to
Fast.
recover better. So you recover faster from every stressor. So if you can recover faster from a stressor, you can apply more stress to that system. And if you apply more stress, more progressive overload, your body grows faster. It's kind
It's,
of like, okay, that makes sense. And then with your insulin, it's to increase how you shuttle fuel to the cells. And people like, man, my personal opinion on insulin is very different to a lot of the people. Hopefully, it's changing. Like I was working with a guy who, like world record powerlifter, competed in bodybuilding, had tons of clients do it, and he was convinced that insulin was going to kill all these clients. I'm like, insulin's not what's going to kill them, man. Like insulin's like a substance that your body secretes naturally in response to carbohydrates. And you couldn't kill yourself with a whole insulin needle, like a Nova Rapid, like one of the ones that you can
yeah.
twist, if you injected the whole thing in one go. And you'd have to be trying to do that because you can't accidentally spin it. It's got 300 spins in it, basically. You can't
No,
spin it 300 times in one go
no, you
by
can't.
accident. And generally, how it kind of works is with insulin, 1 unit of injectable insulin helps you absorb and upregulate 10 grams of carbohydrates. So all it really does is it helps shuttle fuel into the cell faster, which promotes faster recovery. If you improve your insulin sensitivity by getting more nutrients into the cell, you have a predisposition to build tissue that
Yeah.
is muscular in nature versus fat in nature. It can actually take systemic load off your pancreas from eating high volumes of food in the bulk anyway. And it can also mitigate fat gain versus cheat meals because you can have it like, with a cheat meal and you absorb more into the muscle because you generally, after you have a cheat meal, you're not exactly going for a walk or doing cardio, sitting on your ass and being lazy shit, which is what you should do with that. And it can be used pre-training to, basically force the floating blood glucose you have into the cell, which can give better training outcomes. It can be used post-training to improve recovery. So I like insulin. I'm a big fan. I've used a lot of it myself, particularly when I was doing high volume basketball and bodybuilding, because the amount of recovery demands I had in my body was astonishing. So I would be having insulin pre and post workout. And I went all game and I got hyper only once over the entire time of using it. And that's because I forgot how many games of basketball I'd played in a row, which was my fault. I played 3 games and I took a dosage for one. So I had way lower blood sugar because I played, basketball for 2.5 hours, which will
Crash.
deplete anyone's blood sugar. So for a female, like those substances there that we just mentioned, besides the possibility of SARMs, like the insulin and growth hormone, are safer, less or zero androgenic forms of ways that you can enhance your physique and get more out of it. Now, do you lose your natty card when you use them? Yes.
Yep.
You could argue that from a testing perspective with insulin, you don't lose your natty card because it's out of your system. If you don't use it like the week before a show, for example, it's not going to come up in your system.
No, it's not.
But you're still using a performance enhancing
Shelf
supplement.
life of insulin is very, 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 very short. Very, very short.
Yeah,
Where in
yeah. So
comparison to, say, SARMs and PEDs, it could be weeks.
yeah, insulin's an acute response. So you still lose your natty card. So if you're taking insulin in prepping for a natural show and like growth hormone, you cut them both out 2 weeks beforehand, you're just cheating the whole way through. So it's not that you can't do it. And let's be real, it's not like the vast majority of people in those things aren't doing that anyway.
I think the new popularity thing is with natty shows is that they are going down that route of insulin, or GH, or even some peptides, you know,
Yep.
um, because they're again peptide comparison to PED, shelf life a lot shorter, out of the system a lot quicker, um,
Yep.
depending on which one you're using, and then the fact of it is you know some could say MK677 really
Yep.
is basically another form of light growth, but in a peptide. So
Yep.
your again is shelf life is a lot shorter than any androgen from a PED. So a lot of people will use that, i.e. force a lot more food into themselves, more force into the muscle, faster recovery, etc., etc. Yeah, makes prep a lot easier, and it's out of your
That's
system within a week, gone, done, dusted. So you could be a week out and still say you're natty, but you're not natty.
no, you're not. And that's the moral quandary that the competitor has to deal with.
Yeah, good luck to them. I'm not doing that one.
Yeah.
So obviously we've distinguished between peptides, androgen, well, PEDs, GH, insulin, SARMs. For a woman, right? Obviously, we want to try to keep them physiologically and mentally, and I'm not saying all women are unstable, but when you start adding these sorts of things, you start adding to the fire, don't you? Quite a bit.
Yes.
It's a bit like guys with Tren. We'll go
Yeah.
back to the Tren, the wife beater of PEDs.
Yeah.
Everyone has these little sayings of roid rage. Well, really, it's not. You're already a dick. It's just enhancing you being a dick already. Same with the process of a woman, right? But
Yeah.
obviously, at different stages of their menstrual cycle, these PEDs or peptides or SARMs are going to have an effect at some stage, and each stage is going to be obviously a little bit different. From your perspective, what would you still go down the route of, say, GH or insulin then later down the line use the usage of peptides or SARMs or PEDs?
Yep, good question. So, in terms of like managing the hormonal system and making sure that a female feels good throughout the process, because female system, as you alluded to earlier in the podcast, is exquisitely more complex than the males. The male's hormone system is basically have testosterone, get hard. And if it's not working, it's low testosterone, not hard.
Yeah.
That's basically the male hormone system. It's very simple. And it peaks at around 25 and then it starts going downhill. It's very simple. Um, we're basic creatures, so we can sit on a rock all day and look at a fire and be like totally amused.
Yeah.
Um, we're dumb, basically, for lack of a better term. For a female, far more complex, far more intricate, and also has far more, I would say, has far more responsibility, right? Like it's got
Yeah.
to carry a child, right?
Yeah.
All we have to do is to not try not to be crude, but all we have to do is supply DNA. That's our job. We do nothing else. And we're not even that good at that. But we'll move on from that discussion. With most females aren't satisfied with how DNA is delivered. Now, with the female, what I'll do is generally, all right, cool. Let's maximize every single pathway that we can before we start looking at um, drugs, like going down the drug pathway. And it's similar to males. I'm generally tend to be a little bit quicker into it because for a male, we can get a blood test, we can see their low testosterone or whatever's going on, and we can kind of go, all right, cool, you're going to respond pretty well, right? It's a lot simpler. For a female, like if you get blood work done, you got to get it done 4 times. Like over a course of a cycle, you got to make sure it's done at the right time of day. There's a ton of different stuff.
Mhm.
With that, so I'll look at what are the different compounds that I can use, or different supplements, or different whatever it is that I can use to improve a female's performance. So number one, let's lock in training. Let's keep that really simple. Let's lock in training because it's something that we can all manage. Number two would be let's lock in diet. Like let's make sure we're not under eating protein. We actually know what the hell we're doing because females will generally have a tendency to undereat versus males who have a tendency to overeat. Okay. Fairly standard because of different body image pressures that both genders face. From there, I'd be looking at all the different ways that we can actually improve multiple metabolic and muscle building pathways. So, like one, for example, alpha GPC or some kind of supplement that helps improve nerve recruitment to muscles can be really useful for females. They can't recruit as much fast twitch fibers as a male can, which limits hypertrophy potential. Alpha GPC can be anabolic in that audience, in that client type to help them recruit those fibers. You could then go down your like your creatine monohydrate and like your standard performance enhancing supplements that you can have. Because for a female, again, generally, uh, if we're looking at their training in the gym, they probably don't have higher levels of intramuscular creatine as male. We do that, we get performance enhancements already. So we're already starting to maximize some stuff for the female. From there, if we're going to go into down the drug pathway and the supplement pathway, there's a few different ways that I go. The first one would be, well, not the first. There's no rule of which the first and the last one will be, but I'll go through different ones I've used. Injectable carnitine helps them with the androgen receptor and also improves training performance and uses fat as a fuel. Now, with females, there's the stigma of needle, right? And technically, with intramuscular carnitine, because injectable carnitine, it's just an amino acid, you're still natty. So
Yeah.
it's just delivered via a needle, which has the more emotional stigma rather than the actual reality. Like, you get a vaccine from a needle. Like, technically, you're not natty with a vaccine, right? But we won't go down that pathway. Um, well, you're not. You're introducing a foreign compound. Like,
Well,
yeah, it
mate,
doesn't.
I didn't. I just put my hands out and said, no, thanks. You're not doing it to me. I don't know what's in it. So thanks very much.
Yeah, exactly. I had to, but I needed it for well, my wife was having a baby. They wouldn't let me in hospital. So I was like, just stab me. I'll deal with it later. Hopefully I don't die. And I'm good. So knock on wood there. One of the lucky ones. With the with the carnitine, that's one option we can go through. Clen and T3 as supplements for a female, stuff like that. These put you firmly in the non-nutty realm. They're both anabolic for females. Clen is anabolic for females, but only slightly. For men, it more works as a stops muscle loss.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's muscle retention. For female, can it lead to muscle growth? Small dose Clen can do that. Small dose T3 can do the same thing. It's anabolic for females. It helps with fat loss as well. That being said, you need to be very careful with taking T3 because as soon as you have too much, you can actually downregulate your own thyroid.
Yep.
I would then go down the insulin growth hormone before peptides route because simply they're substances that our body already produces. And what we're doing is we're supplying raw materials. So when I ask someone, what do you think is going to be more exhausting to your body to have, that's going to have more side effects? Something that your body already produces, and we just put it in so your body doesn't have to work as hard, or something like a peptide that increases how hard your body works to secrete said compound.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, it's probably the you know the first one. I'm like, cool, all right, let's do that. And it's safer because they've been tested for years and years and years. So generally, they've been used in human trials. If they've been used in human trials and they're passed and they're used medically, they've got a higher safety profile than the peptide. And you probably know what you're getting when you buy it.
Yeah.
Now, from there, we can go down peptides. Now, I'm a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not casual. That's not the right word. I'm reluctant to use them. Like the main peptides I'll recommend to most people, BPC 157 and TB, and that's mainly for injuries and soft tissue stuff because they've been used for a long time, very, very safe.
The only the only one I would add into that is probably MK 677.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, and
Those
that would be my
three probably go-to peptides that I'd probably ever recommend anyone to use. Used M or what's the other one? SA SA 120
I
or
get really bad with all the names of them all because they all
yeah,
got codes, and I'm
it's
just like,
it's
why are we doing codes, guys? Come on now,
um
let's get a name.
it's SA 120. I think. Don't hold me to that.
Yeah,
I'm not the
yeah,
biggest peptide boy of
uh,
it. Like I say,
yeah.
MK 677 and TB 500 and 157. Probably purely because of recovery. That's it for
Yeah,
injury.
yeah,
And
yeah, purely for recovery. So they can be used in a cycle for someone to, if they've got niggling injuries or if they're struggling with recovery things. There are other peptides that I may use in health conditions, but it's not really the subject of this discussion, so we don't need to stress about that. And then I'd be looking at the like HRT, Primobolan, all that type of stuff, because there's so many pathways that we can exhaust first. And what I like to do, and this like makes me sound like I'm a shit coach, but I don't care. I like to actually exhaust the client from the process. So what I mean by that is I want the client to get to the point, man, this is a lot of work. Is this really what I want to do? Because if it's a long term, if like taking like Primobolan and Anavar and all that kind of stuff causes major issues in the long term, I want them to actually be aware of how hard that's going to be because it's very easy to say to someone, "Oh," there's so many coaches out there who just go, yeah, sweet, we'll do that. And it's like, cool, I'm making my client happy now. And I kind of like go through this philosophy in life where it's called be kind, not nice.
mm-hmm,
And being nice to someone is like giving them what they want when they want it. And
mm-hmm.
being kind to them is giving them what they need. So like with a kid, for example, my daughter wants ice cream for breakfast. It'd be really nice if I did that. But that's going to cause, poor
Healthy.
relationship with food, health issues, all that type of stuff. If I'm kind to her, I give her oats and like, I give her like, oats and yogurt, like some protein and some carbs for breakfast. It's not as good as ice cream, is it?
No.
Hell no. But it's like 100 times better for her. And she behaves 100 times better after it. So I like to be kind, not nice to my clients as well. And when they go through that process and they go through, like, cool, these all these other things, they've generally become so locked in by that point anyway and understand that they already look pretty freaking sick. And they go into it like very comfortable if they do go down that pathway. Plus, it also gives them like enough time to actually get under the bar for long enough to build some goddamn tissue. Because there's nothing stupid about going into a prep and going, I'm just going to take drugs to build my tissue.
Well, I had a client not long ago. We won't mention names, but I got her to the Arnold's, the amateurs,
Yep.
and I took her on from a previous coach who is an actual IFBB pro wellness coach, wellness competitor.
Yep.
She competed 2 years ago in Sweden. We won't go into the politicalness of that show, but she came second. What did her coach at the time say? Nothing. Sent her a link. This was it. I was flabbergasted. I was like, what the hell? Said, right, yeah, here's a link. Sent it through on a phone. Yeah, order some testosterone. This is a bikini competitor, by the way, guys and girls. A bikini competitor. And she's seasoned. She's not like a newbie to the sport, like only trained for 5 minutes. We're talking trained good 8-9 years. So she's got some stuff under her belt. She's got an all right figure. Okay. But this is my bona fide beef with people who do, and this isn't just coaches, this is competitors as well, right? Especially in the natty side of the world, and then going on to PEDs or onto SARMs or peptides, right? Get yourself in the gym for at least 5 years, bare minimum 5 years. And I mean, absolute graft your ass off for those 5 years. Maximize everything to the death. Like, have a proper off season. And I mean, not get stupidly fat and like blown out like a Michelin man, but put some body fat on your body that it needs, right? Go and put some really good off-season muscle on. This girl had never had an off-season in 9 years. She did back-to-back shows every year. Bang, 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 bang. Had 12 months off. And you should have seen the difference in the muscle maturity, even though she wasn't natty with me. She wasn't natty previously to me. But in that year that she had off completely, the amount of mature muscle she put on was ridiculous.
You need time to grow. That's the biggest thing that like most people get. It's like it doesn't matter how much you're doing. Like to an extent, the more gear you inject, the faster you grow. To an extent, right? But the downside of that is the more gear you um, uh, with the like you need that time to grow that tissue basically. So the competitor right now, it was kind of like I've had to stop her from like dieting again for she'd been dieting for years to get her period back. So with that, we got her period back, and then she put on all this muscle, and she felt heaps stronger. So that was awesome. Um, that's exactly what we needed to kind of do, and what you did there is true. You need a certain amount of time to actually uh, do this. Okay. And what you did was actually perfect. So with clients, it's such a major thing to actually get them to go, you know what, you can have an off season, build the muscle, build the tissue. That is actually what we need to do. So if you do that, yeah, you're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah, as you say, you're going to be in a much better place, right? But people don't want, it's the same thing with people who want to lose weight, right? They don't want the result in 6 months' time. They don't want the result in 12 months' time, mate. They want it in like 2 days. You know, I had a girl today, right? So messages me, met her through some people online 12 months ago. She does mindset stuff and counseling, coaching, and stuff like that, right? She goes, I want to lose weight. I'm so I've fallen out of love with the gym. I'm like, she goes, yeah, but I've got to lose it tomorrow. I'm like, it ain't gonna come off tomorrow. It simply is not going to come off like that. And it's the same, guys, girls, with putting muscle on. It is not going to happen overnight. Okay? And, it's the same principles. You can't pinpoint where you're going to put the most muscle on, right? For instance, Paul's got, I've seen his back and his abs, and, he's got some big legs. This guy can squat, like really squat.
Yeah.
You ask me to squat, he'll out squat me every day of the week, but then I'll probably out bench him.
Yeah, every day of the week.
I'll probably outdo him on tricep stuff because I've got ridiculous triceps. Everyone's got different points, but people don't understand this. They just think, oh, yeah, I'm packing on muscle. I'm eating all this protein. I'm going to take all this gear. I'm going to do this, and it's going to happen overnight. No, it's not going to happen overnight. what's the old saying? You take gear, you have to work. What is it? Even harder.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You do have to work harder on your gear because you've got a responsibility to the gear. I know that sounds really bad. Your responsibility to the gear where you kind of like, if you've got more potential to build muscle, you need to kind of maximize that. But then also you've got to do the things to allow you to stay on gear for longer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You got like if you're on gear, you got to do some cardio. You know why? Because
Exactly.
you're compromising cardiovascular health. You got to do some liver support. You got to do some kidney support. You got to do some other stuff as well. So if we do all that type of stuff, then that is all, it is more responsibility for gear. So
Mm.
that's fine. So if we do more of that, then that's the thing that you have to do. And people don't get that. As soon as you go on gear, it's basically just of any type, male or female. It's a decision that you've made that you have consequences that you have to pay. Like, are you going to pay the cost of the gear? And that's literally what a lot of people don't do. And they think, yeah, I want it now, but they don't think of what cost they have to pay to go alongside that.
Exactly.
Females have to pay that cost, that pay that toll at a higher rate than men.
Mm. So physiologically, what are the main effects from being on PEDs, peptides, SARMs in women? Because I'm sure there is a mega long list. As you're saying, it's far greater effect on women.
Yep, the physiological effects. All right, cool. So first one, let's go simple. Voice deepening,
Right.
number one. Not a good sign, right? As soon as your voice deepens, it's a bad thing. Cool. So next one is hair loss. Not a good thing.
Is it right now? Okay, I how to put this without making myself look stupid here at this point in time is what's the hormone pathway then that makes women, i.e., start to grow more facial hair in comparison to losing hair?
Oh, okay. They go more facial hair, losing hair. It'll just be the testosterone pathway, testosterone DHT.
Right.
Those two pathways there. So they will get facial hair because of the increased amount of androgens in their blood. That is also why you lose hair as well. So very similar thing. So you can tell I'm never going to lose any of my hair because I have the facial hair development of, a baby's bottom. Uh, Probably terrible testosterone, but generally like elevated levels of testosterone lead to elevated levels of male pattern baldness, same with elevated levels of DHT. And generally what you see with every single bodybuilder who starts using gear, you ever notice that every single bodybuilder now looks the same? They've all got goddamn beards that are big because of the amount of drugs they use. You don't see clean shaven bodybuilders, but everyone's got a freaking beard now. Which I think beards are the makeup of faces, but that's another story. Um, it's a makeup for men. Beard is the makeup equivalent. With that is so we get the facial hair gain. We can get the thinning of the hair up top. Next one we see is a widening of the jaw.
I was about to say. Now that comes a lot with, i.e., the voice box. Actually, doesn't it actually change the the structure of the voice box itself, and then that will progress, sub, like going on to the jawline, going on to the thickness of the actual skull itself, or is that more down to having like GH in there as well?
More GH in there as well. So it's that GH and that testosterone, all those things basically the amount of um, increase the amount of jaw growth that someone will actually experience. So we have that, then that's a problem with that because, that widening of a jaw, that's something that changes forever, right?
It's all right.
And come back.
My ex had it, so it's all right. She's great.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, it changes the head shape. And that's not something any female wants. We see decrease in size of breast tissue. We see increase in size of clitoral tissue, which are probably things that not well, they might want it. Who knows? I don't know. We see increased aggression and more male behavior characteristics. We see decreases in fertility. So we see going to a lack of ovulation. We see amenorrhea, lack of a menstrual cycle. So all these things are serious, like kind of concerns that they're taking away long term what choices she has available to her. That's the best way to frame it. So with a female who has the best choices available to her, it's not about saying she needs to have kids or anything like that. It's like, do you want to still have that option? Is literally the discussion I want to have because a female may not want to have kids, and that's totally fine. That's up to them. If them, it's like if we don't inform them of those potential risks, we're probably not doing our jobs to the best of our ability.
100%.
Yeah, so there's a lot of risk, and then there's the risk of liver health and kidney health and heart cardiovascular health all having major issues. And then at the competition stage, due to use of diuretics and other things like that, the potential for heart problems at that point and or acute kidney problems
Yeah. Yeah.
where they die.
Yes. Yes. Wow. There's a few coaches around the world. We won't mention any names. Have gone and had that done to a few of their clients, but we won't say anyone's names. Also, this even happens in well, it happens in Queensland a lot to a few to a few people I know of. Just through diet. Loss of
Yeah,
period. Thinking feeding someone 900 calories or 870 calories and 25,000 steps and hour of training a day, does that sort of thing for 6.5 weeks minimum out from a show.
yeah,
You know, experienced that firsthand. Ex-partner of mine lost her period for 9 months.
that's crazy. Yeah, it happens all the time. I've restored lots of people who have done their stuff their period. Like it's the first thing I can't do when I work with a new female who's done body composition type stuff is I like to restore their stuff. I like to restore their cycle and stuff like that because it's a longer term process for them, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can get that done, it's good for their health. It's also good for their muscle development long term too,
Exactly.
because it's normal female cycle, which is good.
So we'll dabble into this a little bit, right? Okay, is to do with the side effects of certain things, right? So obviously we with women, especially under the pressures of social aspects of life now, of having to be a certain size, etc., 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 and this fashion parade at this moment in time of Ozempic, Manjaro, semi-glutamide, and what's the new one that Nick Walker was taking that is doing the rounds, which is even more powerful than Ozempic because it
Yeah.
hits all three receptors of the GLP-1, is obviously women, they get a battering when they take this stuff, isn't it true?
Yeah.
Their bodies take
Yeah.
a far bigger battering than us guys.
Yeah. And females' hormonal systems across the board are more fragile. There's more complex, not fragile, sorry. They're probably more resilient in the long term, but they're more complex. And females take a definite beating there, much more so than guys. Guys are kind of like this thing. If they take a thing like Ozempic or whatever, it either works or it doesn't work. It's pretty simple. There's no shades of gray. They're more of a black or white response. Females always respond in shades of gray. Okay. So they can take a lot bigger battering. Um, they take a lot bigger battering from a smaller dosage of said supplement based on a whole bunch of other stuff. So with those things, it's like you need to start with a smaller dose of things.
Mm-hmm.
Start with a smaller dose, and then from there, it needs to be monitored a lot more closely. It's not that those things are good or bad. They are what they are. But we need to make sure that they're doing things correctly with that type of stuff. And if they do that, then it all works out okay. We just need to, and then they need to also then realize that generally, if they do respond badly, that they just or not too well to it, like banging your head against the wall and doing the same thing again and again and again and again, trying to make it work, it just may not work for you. So you may need to go through things a lot. You may need to do different types of drugs. You may need to see your doctor a lot more for a lot of these things. So an example would be a male going on, say, thyroid replacement therapy is generally pretty. We see a lot less males going on thyroid stuff than females too. Okay. So for a male doing it, it's kind of like, all right, cool, we can work out your dose pretty quickly. Testosterone, we can work out your dose very quickly. For females, it's a lot more iterative. So you got to like gradually titrate up and down to find out exactly what works for females due to the fact that the hormones are more complex.
Yeah.
So yeah, we definitely see what you're saying with that. And from there, that's where we kind of look at that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
We need
definitely,
to
definitely,
break it down step by step.
definitely. So, right, obviously, we're running on time here and stuff,
Yep.
but a couple of more questions. Would you say, in your experience, the we sort of got onto it a little bit, right? But obviously, with men, we crash a little bit more harder at times if we've been on PEDs for a while and we come off, or we go down to say the fashion parade now levels of TRT, which isn't TRT levels. They're like
Yeah,
very low gear levels, right? And I'll hold my hands up. I'm on more than TRT levels, but I don't go and
yep.
brag around saying I'm on TRT. It's a simple fact is it's a very low cycle dose. But do you feel that in women, if they were taking PEDs, their mood swings or depression levels are a lot more susceptible than guys?
Oh, oh, that's a good question.
Mm.
If they're taking PDs, are mood levels more susceptible than girls?
Purely because if you look at it in our aspect, is we're suppressing our natural testosterone levels, we're just amplifying the levels they haven't got.
Yep.
So if
Yeah,
we
we're
come
amplifying levels.
off, we're crashing big time in comparison to levels that they've never ever actually had. So they're probably going to go down to a level that they're more like leveled at rather than crashing levels.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Um, yeah, I'd probably say there's going to be a big degree of inter-individual response. There always is, and I know it sounds like such a cop-out answer.
Yeah,
I
it
get
does.
it. Um, there's always an individual response. With females, unfortunately, there is. Um, I feel like females will probably get more of a pronounced behavioral effect or mood effect by the usage of things rather than the coming off,
Right.
because it's an introduction of new hormones to their body that they don't like at a level that, as we were saying before, like loading a testosterone needle for a female, right, is like next to impossible
Mm.
because it's such a small dosage. Um, for a male, they can inject 250 milligrams of TRT of test and feel pretty much, they just feel good, right? That's the standard
Yeah,
thing. A
we know.
female can be, and it's so easy. It's like one mil in, probably not into your quad like that. That would be insane. But like 1 mil done like that, we feel pretty fucking amazing. For a female, it can bring up a whole bunch of new stuff. So generally, when females go off, yeah, I'd agree with you. They go back to a level, and they can be more volatile. Or not, it's volatile is the wrong word. They can be more sensitive when using for the first time.
Uh,
For a male, when they go off like that, I think it's a lot worse a
mm.
lot of the time because it's just like you feeling good for a long time, and you take it away. Like you just go from here to there real
Yeah, and
quick.
it's not okay. Yes, again, it's individualized, but speaking from my own experience, I've been at this level and
Mhm.
I've gone and come off, and I have
Yep.
actually just bottomed, like, and I feel low. It's not nice. It really isn't.
No, it's not a pleasant thing. And like I haven't like I didn't have it for 4 weeks while I was in New Zealand and stuff like that. And I never bottomed out, which like so I was
Yeah,
surprised by.
yeah, I remember we
Um
talked about it.
yeah, I was like, why haven't I bottomed out yet? Like I didn't actually feel a drop at any point. I'm like, am I natty? Have I been natty the whole time? But we've that'd be funny, wouldn't it? Again, that's an individual thing, but the vast majority of guys, like after 2 weeks off, they feel like shit.
Mm.
And like I've seen people go into full-blown depressive moods for that. For females I've seen who have been using stuff and they get off it, they actually go back to feeling like themselves
Mm.
more so. So their interest in different things comes back. There's lots of different things that get better for them. So I think it's actually not a bad. I think for females getting off it is probably a less traumatic experience than for men.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, as guys, we're not as good at regulating our emotions anyway. Like we're fucking wrecks.
Is that
We
why
suck.
the common words of roid rage comes into it? That
Yeah,
stereotype name.
we can't manage our emotions as good as a female.
Right. So obviously, Paul, we end on a few myths, mate. So PEDs, are they used only by professional athletes?
Hell no.
Big bad myth, isn't it, man? It's
Hell no.
I think it's becoming more predominant now. It's almost like a
Oh,
fashion parade. It's
the amount of Instagram accounts that just do, oh, this is what a natural physique looks like. Like people will say this is what a natural physique looks like after 5 years, and then some dude will come on who's just been blasting trend into his eyeballs every 2 days, saying you're a pussy and all this stuff. Like they're all using PEDs. All the fitness moles are using
What was that? What was
PEDs.
that? What was that very, very well-known influencer saying? I put a post up the other day. So anyone who follows my obviously my Instagram will know. Paul saw it, and you sent me a very funny post or answer back, didn't you, mate? To this
Graham Sniff, what?
certain influencer who's claimed he was natty for many, many years, and actually he was on TRT, but he wasn't actually on TRT.
That influencer has actually been on full-blown steroid cycles before in the past as well.
Yes.
And if you've been on a full-blown steroid cycle, you don't, it changes you at an epigenetic level for life. Like once you've used steroids, you're a different human being. Changes your hormone receptors, changes a whole bunch of stuff. So that is what it is. And like you do retain a lot of the tissue that you gained from steroids. You don't retain all of it, but you retain a bunch of it. And yeah, he was like saying people that, influencers who fucking take their shirt off and use that to sell their programs. He's doing it to sell his TRT program. It's not different.
Exactly.
Just don't put health under it as like a bullshit guy. It's just bullshit. Like I'm
Exactly.
just going, it's it's virtue signaling while not actually living virtuously.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
we've got at least one bullshit in this podcast today, mate. Total.
good.
So next myth. PEDs provide a quick and easy solution to your fitness goals. I
That's a myth.
I call that a myth and bullshit.
Absolute myth. Will you get a pretty rapid increase in some muscle tissue quite quickly? Yeah, if you use enough of it. Will you get concomitant side effects that'll make everything else in your life harder? Absolutely. So yeah, it's a myth. Can they help? Yes. Do you need to do a bunch of stuff to make them help? Yes.
Right. Now this is the biggest myth of them all, especially for women. Now, all PED side effects, are they reversible?
Negative.
Myth.
Like some are reversible, but not all are reversible. Hell no, absolutely not. Like let's just if you get clitoral enlargement from abusing PEDs, it will probably stay that way.
Yeah, well, there is a rumor, quote rumor, I won't say which very famous IFBB female has allegedly a very enlarged clitoris. That's all I'm saying. But we're
Would
not talking like this big, we're talking a lot bigger.
Okay. Well, yeah, that once it's happened, well, we easiest way we can look at that is the easiest lens we can look through to see if hormonal treatment for females causes permanent side effects is transgender therapy.
Yes.
It's very, very simple. Transgender therapy um, gives us a very key insight into what happens to the female body when they take male hormones, because that's what they're fucking doing. They're doing it to become a biological or as close to a biological male as possible to live in the body that's ideal for them. Uh, you see these changes, and those changes, like they're irreversible. Like easiest one to look at is the Wachowski sisters. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, I've heard of them. I haven't seen
That
them.
they directed The Matrix, right?
Right, yeah.
Um, and they were the Wachowski brothers then. Now they're both the Wachowski sisters. You look at them, totally different, and you can see how much the drugs have changed them because they were going over male to female therapy. Now, female to male therapy is stronger. Like testosterone is a stronger molecule, like gram for gram. So you see very, very strong changes in jaw structure, facial hair, all these things when people go transgender therapy. So the fact that bodybuilding is in essence like at the competitive level for a female is transgender therapy, just done under the guise of getting more jacked.
On
You
level
see you see these things.
on levels of like transgender like dosages, right? What would be the equivalent well, what are the differences, say, between a top Olympian, right, and a transgender transforming from like female to male?
Oh, the difference in dosage.
Yeah, yeah.
Ah, I don't actually have that data. I don't actually know that
Right,
information for it because I haven't looked into transgender dosages.
right.
Um, it's not something
I
I'm not
presume
interested
it'd
in
be
working
something
with.
a lot more higher than say TRT levels for a guy.
Oh yeah, it'd be a lot higher than that. Yeah, so because it's quite, we could probably easily Google it and look it up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that in the podcast and go, I actually know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, there's some things I don't know because I haven't been interested in finding them out. But yeah, you can assume the dosage is longer term as well,
Mm.
and it's done with the intention of having androgenic side effects.
Hmm.
So we could assume it's more.
So
That would be my guess. I could be wrong.
on that quick note though, right? Obviously, if they're using, say, a testosterone androgen over a longer period of time, surely the side effects, not only just the normal side effects, but i.e. liver, kidneys, heart, surely they're a higher level considering they're actually originally a female body.
You'd think that. Yeah, could be a higher level risk. I'm not 100% sure. Like I would say with transgender therapy, and this has been always my I don't have any argument against it, like for better or worse from an ethical, moral, or whatever standpoint. People can do what the fuck they want to do. I don't care. Um, I don't care like in a negative way. If it makes you happy, it makes you happy. And you're aware of the side effects. It's that there are consequences to everything. I
Mm,
think that that's something that's very misunderstood. And when you say tell someone anything has consequences, they generally get the shits.
yeah.
Um, because they're like, well, I shouldn't have to do that. It's just like kind of like entitlement culture. If you're going to transition gender, there are going to be some side like it's a whole like is a long conversation, but like transgender men going to women then playing in women's sports, right?
Mm,
Like if you're going to go undergo transgender therapy when you started off as a biological male after the age of 18, you've gone through full puberty and had those I guess those biological wins
yeah,
for
yeah.
muscle gain tissue. If you go into female sport, you've got an inherent advantage. Okay,
100%.
which taking estrogen doesn't take that away. It's
No.
it's still there. You just look different. You're still bigger and stronger than everyone else. So as a consequence of my argument has been, if I'm going to change my gender, that's totally within my rights. I'm going to have the consequence not be able to play that sport like that again because I'm disqualified. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like I can't go play under six football because I'm 42,
Mm,
right? It's my consequence of aging. Imagine if you could go play like under six or under eights, like football or something like just smash everyone, just break legs everywhere. Um, so with the cardiovascular stuff like that, because they're all doing cardiovascular kidney stuff, because they're being monitored by a doctor the whole time, that's the difference of transgender versus the other thing. They are being monitored the whole time. And that is going to mitigate the health side effects because as soon as they're observed, they can be actioned.
yeah.
If
So
it's not been observed and it's not been measured, it can't be actioned.
true, true, true. I get that. So, guys, the ultimate answer to all of this is really think long and hard at what you're really wanting to achieve, because bodybuilding is here for 5 minutes. You're here for several years,
Yep.
and your life is shortening by doing this sort of stuff. Yes, we're not saying don't do it, but we're not saying yes, celebrate it, go and do it. By the way, we'll pat you on the back and etc. etc. We're saying make that decision, but own your shit at the end of it because it's your life at the end of the day, and you have to deal with the repercussions of your choices. So
Yep. Absolutely.
on that note, I'm going to thank you, Paul, for the podcast again, mate. It has been great
Namaste.
seeing you again, having you on back on. It's been very interesting, especially on the female side of things, in comparison to 2 weeks ago with the males and just
Yep.
general PEDs. But mate, appreciate your time, guys, girls. This is Paul, and this is the No Bullshit Gymcast podcast. Thank you.